You ever notice how a $1 billion house can feel just as lonely as a one-bedroom apartment? I know, sounds strange coming from me. But trust me, sometimes the only thing thicker than those marble walls is the silence echoing inside. And the night this all started, it was raining the way it only does when something big's about to shift. The maid's daughter, just a kid, she wasn't supposed to be wandering the mansion, but rules blur when your heart gets in the way, you know what I mean? She'd been waiting on that hard velvet bench, clutching her worn-out copy of Treasure Island. Her little dinner packed and untouched. But across the hall, she saw him, Leo, the billionaire's son, small in his wheelchair, staring out at a garden he couldn't reach. His whole world had shrunk to a window and the rhythm of rain. The maid's daughter, Abby, wasn't supposed to cross that line between staff and family, but that old advice from her granddad, a soldier who believed you never leave someone behind, kept echoing in her head. So she stood up, heart pounding, and walked right into the sunroom where Leo sat, breaking every rule her mother ever taught her. "Hey," she whispered. Leo flinched, but didn't look away. She offered him half her peanut butter sandwich, just a kid thing, not some grand gesture. But you could feel it, right then, something shifting in that cold room. He hesitated, then took the sandwich. They shared a quiet meal while the rain blurred everything outside. For a while, they talked. Leo told her about the stars he dreamed of, distant places he could only visit in his mind. Abby told him about her grandfather's medals and the adventures in her book. It was the first time all evening that either of them felt seen, like two kids, not a billionaire's son and a maid's daughter. What they didn't know was that someone was watching. Harrison Croft, Leo's father, the kind of man who could shut down a city with one phone call, saw it all from his office window. He'd spent his life believing everything, kindness included, came with a price tag, a transaction. But watching that girl offer her only dinner to his lonely son, he realized maybe he'd gotten it all backwards. Things got tense fast when Leo's stern caretaker, Ms. Vance, came back and saw Abby. She started making a scene, rules, boundaries, hierarchy, until Harrison Croft himself intervened. He called for Abby and her mother to come to his office, and I'll tell you, that moment felt like waiting to see if the hammer drops or if you're about to get a second chance at life. Turns out, Harrison Croft didn't want to fire Eleanor, Abby's mom. Instead, he surprised everyone, offered her the job of house manager, a real position, with a cottage on the estate, better pay, security, the works. He'd watched Abby and saw in her the kind of character that no paycheck can buy. And just like that, the maid and her daughter went from the edges of the Croft world to its heart. Abby would be Leo's companion after school. A trust fund was set up for her future, and suddenly, that cold mansion started to feel like home. For a while, things were almost magical. Abby and Leo's friendship brought out the best in everyone, even Harrison. Abby read to Leo, challenged him to chess, pushed his wheelchair through the garden until they were both breathless with laughter. She showed him how to climb the trees of his own mind, helped him believe there was more to life than limitations and locked doors. But every story's got a twist, and this one walked on high heels and answered to Beverly Vance. Beverly had been Harrison's executive assistant forever, running his life with an iron grip, and she didn't like seeing her territory invaded by two outsiders. She started making trouble. Little things at first, lost messages, accidental supply chain problems, anything to make Eleanor look bad. But when that didn't work, she set her sights on the kids. The perfect opportunity came with the annual Croft Foundation Gala, a showcase for power and money, and this year, for Harrison's late wife's legendary diamond necklace, the Croft Star. Beverly convinced Leo he was being trusted with a huge responsibility, locking up the display case every night. No help, no friends allowed, just him and a security code. Leo was proud, finally, trusted with something real, but Beverly had a plan. The night before the gala, the necklace disappeared. No forced entry, no alarms, but the log showed Leo's code as the last used. In one breath, he was turned from hero to scapegoat. Abby and Eleanor knew something wasn't right. The whole staff whispered, suspicion thick in the air. Leo shut himself away, crushed by his dad's disappointment. Harrison, he went cold, walling himself off in work, avoiding even the mention of his son or Eleanor. For Abby, That just made her more determined. She started noticing things, like Beverly's obsession with control and her access to the security system. Then Abby overheard Beverly on the phone, bragging that the whole thing would be blamed on a 10-year-old girl and a boy in a wheelchair, that nobody would believe them. That was all Abby needed to hear. She told her mom, and together they set out to find real proof. The answer came in a flash, the treasure hunt map she and Leo had made. Beverly had studied it before the theft. One spot stood out, the old, forgotten greenhouse on the edge of the property. Sure enough, mother and daughter slipped out into the cold night, dug through the grime, and found the necklace taped under a dusty clay pot. But they weren't alone. Beverly was waiting, desperate and dangerous. The confrontation in the greenhouse got ugly. Beverly lunged with a trowel. Eleanor fought back. Abby used her quick thinking and doused the floor with water so Beverly would slip and fall. Just as it seemed things would tip toward disaster, security and Harrison arrived, Leo right behind them. The truth was out, undeniable, and Beverly was done for. The police were called. Harrison apologized for ever doubting his son. And a little girl's courage saved not just her friend, but the whole family. The years rolled on, and life changed. Leo pushed through physical therapy, supported by Abby every step. Harrison Croft learned what it meant to be a father. Abby never had to worry about her future, and Eleanor became the beating heart of the estate. The mansion filled with laughter instead of loneliness, two families woven together by something as simple and as powerful as a peanut butter sandwich on a rainy night. So let me ask you, what do you think makes a family? Is it blood, loyalty, courage, or is it something smaller, like a sandwich and a choice to show up for someone when it matters most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know where you stand on this one. If you found yourself rooting for Abby and Leo, hit like, share where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories that prove sometimes the smallest acts make the biggest waves. Looking back, you'd think life at the Croft estate would be all smooth sailing after that night in the greenhouse. The villain unmasked, the innocent cleared, the family healed, like something out of a storybook, right? But real life, it's never that simple. Some wounds leave scars, and trust, well, that's the slowest thing to grow back, even after justice is served. For a while, Abby couldn't shake the feeling that trouble still lurked in the corners of those grand hallways. Sure, Beverly was gone, and her mother was finally respected for her hard work, but there were always whispers. Some folks just can't stand to see outsiders become insiders, no matter how much they deserve it. But Eleanor walked tall now, and Abby, she started to find her own place, not as the maid's daughter, but as someone the staff looked to for help or advice, even just for a friendly chat in the kitchen. But the real change, yeah, that happened with Leo. He was never the same shy, quiet kid in the wheelchair. Again, Abby kept pushing him, not just in the garden races, but in everything. His therapy, his art, his curiosity. She'd wait for him after her schoolwork, and together they'd plot adventures, draw new maps, sometimes just talk for hours about things you'd never expect. A new planet discovered, a secret passage in the mansion, how it felt to be trusted again. Let me back up a sec, though, because one day, everything shifted all over again. Abby's grandfather, General Hayes, came to visit, a big man, broad-shouldered, the kind who'd seen war and loss, but still had a laugh that filled the whole room. He pulled Leo aside, told him stories about battles that weren't won with weapons, but with brains and courage. You don't let life define you, son, he'd say. You decide what kind of story you're going to write for yourself. That stuck with Leo. He started setting his own goals, not just what his doctors or his dad hoped for him. One afternoon, he shocked everyone by announcing, I want to learn to walk again, even if it's just a few steps. The therapy was brutal, painful, slow, 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. Some days, Leo wanted to quit, and Abby, she'd sit with him, never sugarcoating it. You can cry if you want, but you're not quitting. I didn't come this far for you to give up now, she'd say, half teasing, half dead serious. Every milestone, they celebrated. The first time Leo stood up with braces, the day he took a shaky step across the library, even the day he fell, because he got back up, just like Abby always said. It wasn't about the walking, really, it was about hope, the kind of hope that's contagious, that changes a whole house, a whole family. You know what else changed? Harrison Croft himself. The man who'd once measured everything in contracts and stock prices now measured his days by dinners with his son, by quiet evenings in the garden cottage, by learning how to listen. He'd lost years with Leo before, always chasing something bigger, but now, he didn't want to miss a moment. Sometimes you get a second chance, if you're lucky. Harrison wasn't going to waste his. But life has a way of throwing you curveballs. The year Abby turned 16, tragedy struck again. Her grandfather passed away, peacefully, sure, but for Abby it was like losing her anchor. She drifted for a while, grades slipping, smile fading. It was Leo's turn to be the strong one then. He'd roll into her room, uninvited, and just start talking about nonsense, stars, robots. Some new book he'd read. He reminded her that the people we lose are never really gone. They just become part of the story we carry. And bit by bit, Abby came back to herself. They both grew up. Slowly and all at once. The staff at the mansion, the folks who once saw Abby and Eleanor as outsiders, they came around too. Respect is earned over time, and by now, nobody questioned that the Crofts and the Hayeses were family, even if not by blood. The big twist? It came the night of the Croft Foundation's annual gala, the very event that almost tore them apart years before. This time, Leo wasn't just a guest of honor. He took the stage, standing, even if just for a minute, with Abby beside him. He talked about second chances, about forgiveness, and about how kindness can change everything. The applause was thunderous, but the look on Harrison's face, that was worth more than anything. Pride, awe, maybe a tear he tried to hide. You know how dads are. And Abby? She found her own path. She won a scholarship, first in her family to go to college. On her last night before leaving, the family gathered in the garden, just like always. Leo gave her a gift, a little compass, engraved with the words, "Never lose your way." She laughed, hugged him hard, and whispered, "Only if you promise to visit." That's what family is, isn't it? The people who pull you back when you drift, who believe in you when you forget how, who fight for you even when it's risky. It's not about blood or money or the rules on who's allowed where. It's about showing up, again and again. So let me ask you, have you ever had someone step in when you needed it most? Ever been the one to offer a hand, even when you weren't sure it'd matter? Drop your stories down in the comments. Let's keep the kindness going, because you never know whose world you might change with something as small as a peanut butter sandwich or a single choice to care. And hey, if you're still with me, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and tell me where you're listening from. I read every single one. See you in the next story.